All right. Sorry, that's better, isn't it? You can hear me now. So it is a rather sad evening, isn't it? Arsenal women's manager Jonas Eidevall, of course, has resigned his position. It was announced today, and yes, we are going to talk about Jonas, his career at Arsenal, and where's the club going now? Who's going to be the successor? Lots to talk about. So let's get going. So I think for me, it's a rather sad day. I was rather gutted a little bit when I heard the news. I'm not saying it wasn't exactly unexpected. Jonas, his job has been under scrutiny for a little while now, but actually, I'm quite upset if I'm totally honest. I like Jonas. I've said it plenty of times on the show, and I felt that he had done enough to deserve the opportunity to try to turn the current situation around. But ultimately, it looks like it's not the club decision. We don't know. It may well have been, he may well have jumped before he was pushed. But you have to give him respect and credit because by doing what he's done, it means that the club now don't have to pay out a compensation package for him. And, had he waited to be sacked, they would have done. So you've got to give him even more respect for that. Now, I have to say that he was so close to being one of our most successful managers of recent years, one of our most successful managers ever. How close he was in that first season at half time in the final match of the season, we were top of the table at half time. We were 45 minutes away from winning the league in his first season. And in the end, it wasn't meant to be. And we came second by the smallest of margins. Now, when you think about it, as a coach and a manager, could he have done an awful lot different to turn that around? One extra point here. You can look at certain games. I think the Birmingham game, of course, the only defeat all season in the league. It was a Tottenham game away where we should have won. We know that, and we only drew. But every team drops points, and to be top of the table at half time in the final game, you haven't done a lot wrong, have you, as a manager? So he was very unlucky in that first season. The second season, for me, it started. For me, the downfall, if you like, came in the last 5 minutes of the home game against Manchester United in November 2022. We were 2-1 up at the Emirates. We hadn't lost in the league all season up to that point. Then we scored. We conceded those two really soft goals, didn't we? Lost the game, and then of course Beth suffered her ACL. And I don't think we've ever quite been the same since that game, since that moment. And yes, you have to say in that second season, the ACL problems, Viv getting her injury so soon afterwards, Leah Williamson later on. And then again, he was so close to winning the league in the first season. His second season, he was seconds away from potentially being in a Champions League final. That semi-final against Wolfsburg, it was seconds away from a penalty shootout at the end of extra time. Who knows what might have happened? We'll never know because we conceded a goal right at the end. But how close was he? In his first two seasons, he could have won a league title and reached the Champions League final. And when you look at the fact that he's also won 2 League Cups anyway, that wouldn't have been a bad start, would it? And look how the small margins that he's been on the wrong end of has been. He must have been one of the most unlucky managers in Arsenal's history, in football history, when you think about it. How close he was to being so successful, and we wouldn't be sitting here now, would we? If just 1 or 2 different results had happened. And that's all it is, from him being an absolute Arsenal legend, winning the biggest trophies of all, to walking away with his tail between his legs, it not having quite worked out. Now, I think the last week, again, he's been unlucky. We had to play 3 big games in 6 days, including travelling into Europe for a big Champions League game against one of the top sides in Europe. And obviously, we've come out of that with poor results. 1 draw against Everton and then 2 defeats. But you have to say, again, the Everton game wasn't a great performance, but we could have won the game. Let's be honest. We had some chances. We could have won the game. The Bayern Munich game in the first half, we were really good. could easily have got a result there if it wasn't for the second half collapse. And even against Chelsea, you know, if it wasn't for that first 10, 15 minutes, we actually played well. We actually played well. And again, we've lost the game. And again, he's been unlucky. He's been unfortunate. So, you know, and I do feel as though, you know, there's been a lot of unrest in the fan base over the last week or so in particular. And after the game on Saturday, when there was that, when Jonas out was sprayed on a wall and stuff like that, I think that's very disrespectful to a guy that's given his best for this club. And I say, with just a fraction more luck, things just going slightly more one way instead of the other, such more margins, he could have been so successful. And it just doesn't quite work. Now, we don't know, as fans, don't know what's gone on behind the scenes, right? We don't know what's happened over the last year or so when it started to go wrong, if you like. And obviously things have been going on that we don't know about. And it was obvious that it wasn't quite working with the players that we had. And, you know, maybe the team had gone backwards. I'll say since that Manchester United game from November 2022, it seems to have gone backwards from that point. And what those reasons are, we don't know. Obviously, there was problems with Viv. Viv's got a lot of support within the player camp, so that's obviously going to cause a few issues as well. And I don't know whether that's part of it, whether it was just Jonas overcomplicating things a little bit tactically in some ways, trying to change the way we played. Which, yes, all managers want to stamp their own style on a team, but I don't know. We don't know what's gone on, and ultimately, it was inevitable the way things have been recently that he wasn't going to last much longer. I hope and I believe that he'd done enough for the club not to sack him because of a bad week. I hope he proved enough over the last 3 years to have deserved that more time. I personally think he did, and I would hope that the club did as well. But if he felt like he's felt and he's felt it's time to go, then fair play to you, mate. Fair play to you, mate. Because not many managers, and one in particular at this club, that should have maybe had that courage to walk away when it wasn't working out. And Jonas has done that. So I've got nothing but respect for him. Absolutely nothing but respect for him. And what he achieved was not quite what it could have been, but he won us some trophies. And ultimately, winning trophies is difficult, particularly now in the WSL with the quality that there is, with Chelsea winning everything in sight. To go and beat them in 2 consecutive cup finals, you know, there won't be many managers that will do that. There won't be many, whether they're Arsenal managers or anybody else. Not many managers are going to beat Chelsea in 2 cup finals in 2 consecutive seasons. So, you know, when we beat them last year in the Continental Cup final, they were going for a quadruple at that point. It was looking on, wasn't it? In the end, they only won one of the 4, but you know, us beating them led to their downfall. So, you know, he did a lot of good. He's done a lot of good. It hasn't quite worked out, and he's decided to make that decision. And I say, I personally respect him for that, and I always will. And I want to say thank you to Jonas. We know he watches the show because we've said it plenty of times, but you know, I want to say thank you to Jonas for what he did for the club and for making that decision and doing the right thing. If he felt that was the right thing to do, rather than wait to be sacked and say, okay, I'm going to hang on and get me compensation. No, he didn't. He put the club first, which I think he's always done. So, you know, fair play to you, mate. Good luck in whatever you choose to do. You'll always be welcome back at any time. You know, you've done it. You've done your best you could do, and that's all anyone can ask for. And in the end, it hasn't worked out. And I'm personally sorry about that, and I'm quite upset about that, if I'm totally honest. But football is football, and a football club and a club like Arsenal isn't about one person. And you know, I've always tried to detach myself away from individuals a little bit for that reason, because individuals will always come and go. The club will always be here. You know, we've had great players, we've had great managers over the years, and they've come and gone, and they've been replaced, and things move on, and that's the evolution of football. So I'm not gonna spend too much time mourning the departure of Jonas. I respect for what he did. I'm disappointed in the way it's finished. I'm actually sad for him. I'm sad for the way it's gone. I was sad when I heard the news this morning. But we can't dwell too much on that. There's going to be a new era coming in, and that's something that we need to look forward to, don't we? We need to look ahead to, and who's going to come in, and what changes are going to be made, and what's the future going to bring. You know, I've been saying, and I said this the other day, that this season isn't over yet. Not by any means. It's not over at all. People say, "Oh, we can't win the league now." Well, of course we can. If you think Chelsea and Man City aren't going to drop points, we've drawn 2 games and lost 1, right? Yes, okay, we would have to win most of our remaining games to win the league. I absolutely hold my hands up and admit that. Of course we will have to win most of them. And there's no reason to suggest we can't do that. We've got the quality to be able to do that. And, Chelsea and Man City will lose. They'll drop points. They'll draw games. They'll both lose games. They might lose to each other. We've still got to play them both again. So, I don't think it's over. And I think that the doom and gloom over the last week has been exaggerated. Things aren't as bad as everybody seems to be making out that they are. I don't think they are that bad. They're not great, obviously, and we wasn't expecting the performances to be the way they have over the last couple of weeks, and the results haven't gone our way, and all this kind of stuff, which we know. But it's nowhere near as bad as it's been painted out to be. And I still think this season could be a really successful season. We've still got 4 trophies that we can go for and try to win. And we still may end up this season winning something quite special. We still can. So, and I think we could have done if Jonas stayed. I'm not saying this is going to be the reason, but the important thing now is how we move forward from this. It's a bit of a mess at the minute. It's always like that when a manager leaves a club in the season. It's a bit of a mess, isn't it? And the club and the players and everybody else has got to find a way to negotiate through this next couple of weeks until we get a new manager in that whoever that's going to be. And that's something we need to look forward, don't we? Terry says, we don't want any BS, just roll me out, salty Emma, and then tell me Arteta has resigned. Yeah, well, Terry says, good evening, Richard. Let's hit that like button on your way. And indeed, yes, it'll give us a like. It's all good stuff, isn't it? Terry says, good luck, Jonas, with your future ventures, and thank you for being the only person at Arsenal Business FC to bring us trophies. Well, yeah, exactly. He brought us 2 trophies, and I'll never forget that. So thank you for that. And says, evening, Terry, and no to Hayes. No, don't be like that. And says, indeed, good luck, Jonas. Like the man. Yeah, I think we all liked him as a man. I think even the people that didn't really rate him as a manager and a coach, it's difficult not to like him, and his passion and stuff. I think it's great, which is good, isn't it? Terry says, evening, Angie. What's wrong with Salty? Well, we said this, didn't we, on the game the other day, right? If we're going to get rid of Jonas, let's just go for the best. We're Arsenal. Let's go for the best. And the best manager in women's football at this moment in time is Emma Hayes, and she's from our club. She was a coach at our club. So I would, if I was in charge of making those. I'm not saying Emma Hayes would necessarily manage Arsenal right now. She's just moved to America. She's done a good job there. They won the Olympics, all this kind of stuff, right? And she's building something there that she's probably thinking, I want to continue this job. But you can't tell me that the draw of being back in England, back in the WSL, back at the club that she was so successful with when she was here before as a coach, you can't tell me that if she was offered that job, she wouldn't seriously consider it. And I believe she's the best there is. As much as we never liked her. We had plenty of discussions on this channel, didn't we, about her and all those battles that we had with Chelsea. But it's not a matter of liking somebody or disliking them, is it? You can't do anything but respect what she's achieved in women's football, what she's done for women's football. And unfortunately, she did most of it with Chelsea as their manager in recent years. And why can't she do the same at Arsenal like she did when she was here before? So I personally, my choice would be break the bank if you have to, buy her out of her contract in America and get the best that there is. And Emma is the best. Pains me to say it, of course. It pains us all to even think about it, but she is the best out there. What's the point of getting someone in who's nowhere near as good as Emma Hayes because we don't want to maybe pay the money for her, or we don't want to make that? If she turns us down, I'd say fair enough. Look, I wouldn't necessarily blame her if she did. I don't personally think she would, but I wouldn't blame her if she did, right? Because of all the stuff that's gone on between the clubs over recent years, right? But as a club, as Arsenal, we should have the ambition to say we are going to try to get the best there is. We put a world record bid in to try and get Kira Walsh over the summer, one of the best players in the world. We went for the best. Let's go for the best manager. Doesn't matter where she's come from. It doesn't matter what's happened in the past. It doesn't matter about all that. Let's just get. You can't tell me Emma Hayes will not get this team with the group of players that we've got. You can't tell me she won't be excited about working with this group of players, knowing how good they are and what they can achieve. I think she would jump at the chance given that opportunity. So please, Edu, if it's you, Claire Wheatley, whoever it is that's going to make this decision, offer her the job, make her the offer that she can't refuse. Get her here. She's the best, and we deserve the best. We're Arsenal. We should be looking for the best. Don't settle for second best because we don't think we can get her or we don't want to pay it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get her here. And I'm telling you what, if she was to come in now, you can't tell me we won't have a successful season. We will, and not only just this season, looking long term. You know, she is the one. She's the best there is. Come on, we know she is. But let's see. Greg says, even all the best to Jonas. Thanks for the memories. Exactly. Yeah, no, that's a nice comment, Greg. I totally agree with you. And I think that, you know, there's been a lot of not nice things said about Jonas over recent times from Arsenal fans and other stuff like that, and you know, on social media, and I don't think it's been fair. I really don't think it's been fair. He doesn't deserve that. He hasn't. Yeah, okay, he wasn't working out. We wasn't playing particularly well, and that's fair enough. But for the abuse that he's had to suffer, I think it's wrong, and he's right. Thank you for the memories, because there's been some great memories, and it's been brilliant. And says they're vile creatures. Well, no, it doesn't matter though, does it, Ange? Come on. I mean, look, no one likes her particularly, right? I don't particularly like her at all, but she's the best. She is the best. You've got, I mean, okay, you could say that obviously Sonia Bombasta at Chelsea now is one of the best as well, but she's just gone there, so we can't get her. But Emma, I think Emma is the best manager in women's football. I think she's the best. And we should look to get. We should always try to get the best of everything. Best managers, best players, best coaching staff, best everything, best analysts, best fitness people. We should go for the best of everything. And I'm sorry, she's the best. She is. Terry says, "Anne, did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed today?" Well, I don't know. Maybe. Greg says, "Heard Stoney in the running. Who wants a manager who got sacked for losing 7 games on the trot?" Yeah, you see, I think what happens is. And this happens in the men's game as well. It's not just in the women's game, but people seem to get this over thing about people that have got maybe ex-players at a club, for example, suddenly seem to be much more appealing as a manager than someone who's an actual manager that maybe hasn't had any. Obviously, Emma Hayes had a connection to the club, but do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that Casey Stoney isn't a good manager. She didn't do brilliantly in her previous job, and obviously she's got the Arsenal connection, but we should be looking higher than that. We should be looking better than that. Why settle for someone who's not been a success? We should look for the managers that who's won the Champions League, who's won the WSL, who's won the big trophies. Get one of them. Emma Hayes is one of them. So let's get her. You know, the guy at Barcelona who he left, didn't he, recently? Someone like that. You know, the best. With a track record of winning the big stuff. You know, Jonas was a bit of a gamble because, okay, he'd had success in lower level leagues. It was maybe always going to be a big step up for him, and it didn't quite work out. So next time now, we need to get someone who's got that experience of winning at the top level of women's football, and that's what we need to do. And don't come out with all this, you know, Jack Wilshere, or come out with people that have never managed or coached in the women's game. No, we want people that understand women's football. Understand women's footballers, because it's different to men's football. You can, you know, Pep Guardiola, for example, would he necessarily be a great manager in women's football, managing women football players? We don't know. Just because he's done well in the men's game doesn't mean he would automatically be able to manage women players. It's a totally different job. It's a totally different thing, isn't it? So let's go for someone who knows the women's game, knows what it takes to succeed, and let's try and get the best we can. If we can't get the very best, which in my opinion is Emma Hayes, then let's go down the list. Let's get the second best. Let's go for the second best. If we can't get second best, go for the third best. Don't just go in for someone like Casey Stoney, who's way down on that list. Way down on that list. Why are we even thinking about that as a first option? No, definitely not. Ange B says Stoney not in the running. Well, I hope she's not. I hope the club aren't even considering it. Terry says he got sacked for playing Arteta football. Even the fans have stopped going. Well, the fans had stopped going to a certain degree, that we wasn't getting sellouts. But I think a lot of that's to do with the fact that there's so many games at the Emirates now. People can pick and choose which games they want. When there was only 4 games at the Emirates, you had to go to them all because you didn't have a choice. If you want to go to the Emirates, well, I'm going to have to go to these games because that's all there is now. You think, well, there's 8, 9 games, I can pick and choose which ones I want. And I think that's one of the reasons why the crowds are a little bit lower this season. Obviously, the form of the team hasn't helped, but I think regardless of that, if there was the same amount of games at the Emirates as last season and the season before, I think we would have sold them all out pretty much, because that's where we are. Because there's so many now, people are picking and choosing. But I'm not going to go to that one because I can go to 2 or 3 others. It wasn't the case last season, was it? You had to go to the ones that were there because there was so few. And I think that I said this the other day that Arsenal was almost trying to run before we can walk in terms of the Emirates situation. We should have maybe waited another year or another 2 years before we're at the point where we've got to now, because I don't think we're quite ready. And okay, yes, we're still getting bigger crowds than we would if we was at Meadow Park, because we've got 20,000, 25,000 against Everton. God knows what the crowd's going to be tomorrow. I think that was a concern, what it was going to be. A midweek game in the Champions League against a team that no one's ever heard of. It's hardly going to bring the crowds in. And that game would have probably been better off, like the Hacken game, being played at Meadow Park. But they're looking at the money, aren't they? It's all about the money, isn't it? Johnny says, who's happy with Thomas Tuchel as England manager? Me. I'm happy, my friend. I am happy. Thomas Tuchel is a fantastic football manager. He's a great tactician. He's a great coach. I would have loved him to have been manager of Arsenal when we were having those problems with Unai Emery, and even in the early days of Arteta. I would have taken Thomas Tuchel at Arsenal. I think he's a very, very good manager, and I'm happy that he's come to England. I don't care that he's from Germany. I don't care where he's from. It doesn't make any difference. Again, what I came back to before, go for the best. Go for the best you can get. Thomas Tuchel is a top manager. He's a successful manager, and I think he'll be a great manager for England. And at this moment, as we sit here, I know that we're not here to talk about England, but it's another big story today in football. I'm actually, for the first time in a long time, I'm actually excited now for England, because I think he's a great manager, and I liked his style of football when he was manager in Chelsea in the Premier League. I liked what he's done. I like what he did at Dortmund. I like his style of football. I'm actually excited to see where England are going to go with him. So yeah, that's a great appointment. So yeah, let us know if you guys are happy. I'm really happy. I'm delighted with that. Wow, what a manager that is. One of the best managers in European football, world football at this moment in time. Brilliant. I'm happy, over the moon. And says, I like Thomas. Yeah, I think we all do. I think he's brilliant. Johnny says, I would take Macario over all our attackers. I don't think our attackers individually are the problem. I think the problem is the gelling them together. And I think that's where Jonas has struggled. Now, he wanted, you assume he wanted all these players that we've got, Russo and Blackstenius and Caldente, and, we already had Caitlin Fall, we already had Beth Mead, we had Viv, obviously, which we know what's happened there. But he wanted all these great players. But he seems to have struggled in some way to get that balance and that blend right. And maybe it will take new eyes coming in who can make that work. I don't think the players in terms of the quality of the play, I do think the players have been the problem. I don't think they've covered themselves in too much glory here, the players. Certainly some of the more senior players. And I think they need to look at themselves as well and hold their hands up and say, we've maybe cost Jonas his job as much as anything else. Jonas has made mistakes as well. Of course he has. I'm not saying he hasn't, but I don't think the players necessarily individually as players are the problem. I think we've got enough quality in our squad to be challenging and winning big trophies. Honestly, I do. I think the squad is fantastic. I don't think we can argue with that. I think the problem has been getting them to gel and getting them to finding the right way to make it work together. I would have played Stina and Leslie a lot more often together. Let's see what a new manager does with the players that we've got. That's going to be interesting, isn't it, for me? It's going to be interesting to see how we set the team up going forward with a new manager, because are they going to play Stina and Leslie together? Are they going to find a way to do that? Are they going to find a way to get more out of Mariona, who's struggled a little bit to have a big impact in the game so far? I don't necessarily, again, I'm not blaming Jonas for that necessarily, because she's new into the club. It's a new country for her. She spent such a long time at Barcelona. Suddenly everything's done differently. And it's going to take her a while to adapt and to settle. And it is doing. And that's perfectly understandable. And I don't mind that. But let's see if a new manager coming in will find a way to get more out of her as well, because we know how important she's going to be. What a great player she is. I mean, she's a fantastic footballer. It's not quite coming off for her, is it, at the moment? Let's see. Terry says, deport Tommy T. You should never be let about it. No. I like Tommy T. I definitely have. Rusty's with us. How you doing, Rusty? Says, evening, everyone. Terry, how you doing? Says hello to And as well. Greg says, thought something was wrong when he wouldn't say what happened to Lear a few weeks ago. Yeah, we mentioned that on the show, didn't we? I felt something had happened there. I did say it on the show, and people were like, oh, no, it's probably not. over that concussion thing, which seemed to last about 3 weeks, which concussion protocol doesn't last that long. So I felt there was other issues there, and I did mention it on the show here, if you remember. So I agree with you. I think something had happened there behind the scenes. But obviously, Leah is you have to say Leah's not been playing particularly well, and we could look at her injury and say, coming back from an ACL always takes time. Is that the reason for her being off form, or as you rightly say, Egrid, has something gone on? Did something go on behind the scenes that caused that issue? I believe it did. I said it at the time. I'm not just saying it now in hindsight that he's gone. I thought at the time because I mentioned it on the show. So yeah, I definitely think so. Yeah. We've got Pelijev says they want Karen Carney. No, come on, that can't be right. We don't want a TV personality broadcaster to be our manager, do we? Let's be honest. Russ says, I'm good. It was time for Jonas to go. It unraveled pretty quickly. Notice none of the players have wished him luck in the future. That's telling. I mean, I wouldn't say none of the players. Maybe the players have decided to move themselves away from that, rather than going on social media and all this kind of stuff, right? Maybe they've made that decision. It was interesting that Kim Little came out for the press conference today ahead of the game tomorrow, obviously with Renee, who's taking charge of the team temporarily. And, she wasn't going to get drawn. Some of the questions she was asked were to try to cause an issue and try to cause some problems. And she was very clever in her answers. Clearly, there was issues with the manager and the players. I mean, he said it himself, didn't he? Part of his sort of statement, if you like, was, disagreements, I think was the word used with players and staff. So obviously things have gone on. We know that. And I'm sure some of those players do wish him luck and are going to be sorry he's gone. And there'll be others that are probably glad he's gone. But that's always the case at any football club. If you go to any football club, even Manchester City, right, go to the men's team, and I bet you there'll be players at Manchester City who, if Pep got sacked, they'll be pleased he's got sacked. Because players are like that. Players can be very selfish. They think about themselves. What's this matter? Am I getting picked in a team enough? Am I getting enough minutes on the pitch? No. Well, if the manager goes, I might get picked more. That's what they think of. And yes, okay, they think of the medals that they might be winning as well, and that's a part of it. But in general, players care more about if they're getting picked or not, if they're playing or not, and if the manager's picking them. So there'll be players at Manchester City that if Pep was to leave, and when Pep does leave, they'll be happy he's left. Others will be absolutely devastated, and of course fans will be more devastated. But that's the situation, isn't it? And I say there'll be some of these Arsenal players that are pleased he's gone. Absolutely, they'll probably be all round Beth's house now having a party, right? But there'll be some players in that squad that'll be at home really sad tonight, really, really sad and unhappy, and upset about it. And that's normal. You'd expect that at any club because that's the nature of a football club, isn't it? Not everybody's going to get on with everybody. Not everybody supports everybody. Not every manager is going to be the favourite of all the players. It's just the way it is. And as a manager, you wouldn't want to be the favourite of all the players because you've got to make tough decisions, and those tough decisions are going to upset people, and you've got to be willing to do that and take that chance. So that's the way it is. And maybe the players will come together and say it'll be pointless. 2 or 3 of the players saying, "Oh, good luck, Jonas. Thanks for what you've done," and then everybody will be saying, well, why didn't this player do it? Why didn't that player do it? So it would have caused more problems, I think. They're better off none of them saying anything. And I think that's the best policy. So if they, Kim said that the players all got together today and they talked about it, of course they did. And I hope they came to that decision themselves because I think that's the right thing to do. Because otherwise it just leads to more problems, leads to more questions. Why isn't Beth put good luck Jonas? Why isn't Leah put good luck Jonas? Then you can suddenly start to see a pattern in the dressing room, and that's no good for anybody, is it? Because a new manager coming in doesn't want to have little cliques in the dressing room. They want everybody to be on board, and it's difficult to achieve, isn't it? So I think that I'm not bothered about the fact that they haven't said anything. I think that they've made if that was their own decision as a group, then that's brilliant. And if Kim was part of that decision, because it sounds like she obviously as captain, I think her and Leah and 1 or 2 others maybe said, look, this is the best way to do it. And it is, and it's right. And I'm pleased that if they've made that decision, I'll back them 100%. So I don't think it's telling at all. I think it's a sensible, professional decision from the players to avoid getting sucked into that. Kim's at that press conference was brilliant. She wasn't getting sucked into anything. Some of those questions were ridiculous. And she's just saying, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that. This isn't the time. And she's dead right. I'm sure at some point later on in the future it'll be fine. All the players can talk about it, and I'm sure they will do because they're very vocal in lots of other things. A lot of our players, and I'm sure at some point later on in the future it'll be the right time to talk about it. Not now. Not now. It isn't. Now's the time to get together as a group and get these next 2 games played and won, and then look at the new manager, support the new manager, go through that transition that's going to happen, look at trying to get great results on the pitch, and then maybe at the end of the season, that's the time to maybe reflect on it, look back, and then maybe give your thoughts and come out publicly and say how you feel. And that's fine. Write a book about it if you want to. That's fine as well. But not now. Not now. We don't need that now. There's enough stuff going on that we don't want any more. We don't want any more stuff to be thrown at the club now and the team. We need everything to just calm down and say, look, this has happened. We're going to regroup and we're going to move forward. And that's all we need to do. And don't worry about it. It doesn't matter if the players are saying good luck to Jonas or not. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter how they feel about Jonas because he's gone. What matters now is moving things forward. Moving things forward. And I think that was a good, if it was a group decision, I'll say I'm fully behind it. Terry says, let's hope Arteta has the same minerals as Jonas and Jackson. Well, he won't, will he? He would have done that 2 or 3 years ago if he was ever going to. He's never going to, is he? Because he's too selfish. But anyway, it's not about Arteta, is it? Russ says we should move heaven and earth to get Vic Akers back. Vic Akers' days have come and gone. As great as he was, we know we shouldn't do that because it's like, should Man United bring Sir Alex back? No, of course not. Should we bring Arsene Wenger back? No, of course not. Those managers were great. They had their time. Fantastic. Vic, brilliant. No one's got anything but respect for the guy. But he's in his 70s now, isn't he? He might have been 80. I don't even know how old he is. He's got to be in his 70s. No, it's not. No, I'm not saying maybe don't bring him back in some capacity behind the scenes. Definitely not as manager. Definitely not as manager. Not now. And he says, "Dear old Vic still." Exactly. Yeah, his days have come and gone. I wouldn't want him to come back and spoil that legacy that he's left by the fact that football's changed and he's still old school, isn't he? You know what I mean? I don't know. I think we need a modern manager. I think we need someone who understands modern women's football. I'm not saying Vic doesn't, but do you know what I mean? Someone who's more in tune with it now, has been working in women's football now. Greg says, you read my mind, Terry. I thought the same thing. Wayne says, Arteta probably will step down if we don't win a thing. His contract is up in 2027. Well, if he hasn't won anything by 2027, he's still not here by that long. If he doesn't win anything for 7 years, come on. I mean, that's not good, is it? Terry says, hit that like button. Yes, please, if you're enjoying it. Wayne says, now we're too far behind now. It's not acceptable. 5 points out of 12, 18 games left. Chelsea don't drop these silly Everton at home type points. Well, no, but sometimes they do. They do. Every season, if you look, they have a game or two where I remember they lost to Reading away a couple of seasons ago. They drew at home with some rubbish. They lost at home to Brighton a couple of years ago. And they do drop them points. They do. Everybody will. And don't forget now, the standard of the league is higher. So even the lower teams are capable of taking points off the top teams because they've got better. And I think Chelsea this season are going to suffer from the fact that they've got a new manager. They may be changing the way they play a little bit. And I think they are going to drop points. Chelsea are more likely to drop points than Man City. I think Man City will because they always do. And I don't think Gareth Taylor's quite there where he needs to be in terms of winning the really big stuff with Man City. So they will drop points as well, but they're less likely to suffer that because they've got a settled manager, they've got a settled team. They're the only ones now, aren't they? They haven't changed their manager because obviously Chelsea have changed. We're going to be changing. This is Man City's season in the WSL to win the league, but they do drop stupid points. So we need to. Or what we need to do is that yes, we've dropped 5 points already, which isn't great, but if we win our next 6-7 league games, Chelsea and Man City will drop points in that period of time. They'll be playing each other as well. We'll be right back in it, and we can do that. We're capable of doing it with the players we've got. So I don't think we're too far behind. If we drop points in the next 2 or 3 games as well, then obviously yes, it will be. But I don't think it is quite yet. Lucky says appointment before winter break looks highly unlikely. Let's hope the restructure doesn't take too long. Well, I just think it's going to be during the international break. I think that we've got these 2 games now this week against Vålerenga and then West Ham at the weekend. Then there's the international break. I think during the international break they'll get a manager in. I'll get the new manager in during the international break. I think they will. I don't think we can't wait any longer than that. And regardless of how well Rene does in these 2 games, and I'm sure we're going to win the 2 games regardless. I think we'd have won the 2 games if Jonas was in charge. That doesn't matter too much. I think we need to get the new manager in place, on board, in the international break. Absolutely. But let's see if we do or not. And says we'll agree to disagree. And that's absolutely fine. We don't mind that at all. We don't all want to agree with everything, do we? Because that'd be boring. And Terry says, I think we have a good chance of getting Salty to come back because the Bindonomics hamburger are way expensive. Well, yeah, that's true actually. Yeah, that is a good point actually. Yeah, anyway. And says, Russ says, I agree. Get the best manager available. Exactly. Yeah, I've always, when it comes to Arsenal, on my feelings have always been the same. Let's get the best, because we should be looking for the best, because that's where we are as a club. We need to be going for the best. Don't just settle for anybody. Just get the best. Lucky says Giraldo is also a good option, but he said he has no desire to manage another European team. I think it's easier to poach him than Emma. Yeah, maybe. I'd say anybody that, for me, that's got a track record of winning big things in women's football should be on our radar. Every single one who has. And some of them are going to be more difficult to get than others, of course. And some are going to cost more money, depending on the contract they're on, such as Emma. But it's what do we want as a club? What ambition have we got? Sometimes you look at the men's team and I wonder, what ambition have we got? Let's see. This is a time, isn't it? This is where you know about your club, when you learn how much ambition they've got. What manager do they, when there's a management position to fill, who do they give it to? That tells you everything you need to know about the direction the club are going in. If we end up bringing in a manager like Casey Stoney, for example, to me that shows a lack of ambition for the club. I'm not saying she wouldn't necessarily do a job, but I'm sure she'd do an okay job. But to me, that's a sign that the club aren't as ambitious as we are as fans. Personally, Royston is with us. My friend, he says it had to happen from the first league game against Man City, when they had that 15-minute spell in the second half when they should have scored 3 goals. I knew it was only a matter of time before he left. Yeah, I think it was inevitable. He probably wasn't going to see out the season. It would have took this last week of those 3 games. I think we would have needed to have won 2 of them, quite honestly. I'm still sad it's happened. Angie says Serena, but she won't do club football. Well, you see, you say Serena, right? And I love Serena, absolutely. I adore Serena. I think she's fantastic, right? What she's done for England. But if you look at England's results and performances over the last year and a half, they've not been great, have they? They've not been great. She seems to be struggling a little bit with the transition from some of the players who are getting too old and replacing them. And, she's done very, very well, brilliant, amazing, but I'm not sure if she would necessarily be the right choice to manage Arsenal right now, personally. And plus, as well, I want her to stay at England because she's a good England manager and she's done well and she's going to do well again, I'm sure. But yeah, no, I wouldn't want Serena at Arsenal. Greg says we won't get the best. The best is managing England. Well, you see now, she's very good, but I don't know. I've been quite frustrated with how things have gone for England over the last 18 months, where we played and stuff like that. I think she's lost a little bit of the magic that she had at the beginning when she first came in, those first 2 years, building up to that home Euros. Since then, yes, we've had injuries, we've had players missing, players are getting older, but I don't know. I don't think she's managed that as well as I hope she was going to, that transition, if you like. We got to the World Cup final, we're a little bit fortunate, maybe. We didn't play very well, do we, in that tournament for the most part. We didn't play very well in the final at all. So, I don't know. But we'll see. Terry says, how about giving Lordy Andreas a chance, save him a fortune on flights and accommodation? Well, I mean, obviously, we would fully back that. Absolutely. Although I think maybe Andreas would be better in more of an advisory role. I think that would be I think he would be perfect in an advisory role for the club. Not necessarily being the manager and the coach, but advising the manager and the coach, advising everybody. And I think if Andreas was in a position like that in a club, everything would be better. Everything would be better because the standards would raise straight away because Andreas has got those standards. So yeah, absolutely. But not as manager, but just as maybe, I don't know, chief consultant for the football director. How about director of football instead of Edu? Yeah. Or Claire Wheatley. Get rid of Claire Wheatley. Get a Lordy Andreasen. That's the job done, isn't it? Royston says, so we're now safe to mention the war. Well, exactly. Yeah, good old Tommy. We love Tommy, don't we? Terry says, let's be honest, England are rubbish. Well, they are, but they might get better now with a better manager. Who knows? Let's see. Terry says, we need to play more attacking football rather than play pass, and go nowhere football. We do. We do need to do that. And I'd like to see a manager that does do that. And if you look at the way Emma Hayes managed Chelsea, they were very direct. Got the ball forward quickly, got it into the box. Wouldn't that be good? She's a bit old school, but she's the best. And I'd like. The more and more I think about it, I was thinking about this at the weekend when they kept showing her, didn't they, sitting in the Emirates next to Vic Akers. She was sitting in that ground, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? If we're going to get rid of Jonas, let's get her. Let's do everything we can, please, let's get her. And I never thought I'd ever say that. I never thought I'd ever be sitting here wanting Arsenal to bring Emma Hayes in as manager. I never ever thought I'd want that to happen, but I do now. If Arsenal announce this next week or whenever it is, Emma Hayes is new Arsenal manager, literally, I think I will have a party for about a week. It'll be the best news ever. I'll be so excited, honestly. I would be so excited. But if I'm honest, I don't think it'll happen because I don't think Arsenal will do it. I don't think Arsenal will put the money up front to get her, buy her out of that contract. I think she would come as well. That's the annoying thing. I think she would come, but I just don't think we've got the ambition. I don't think we've got the people at the club haven't got that about them to go and get her. I don't think they have, but I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to be proved wrong on that. I'd love her to be me. I'd love it. I love it. There he says, as I said before, nice people never win nothing, and Jonas seems a nice guy. Yeah, and maybe that's. I thought he had that edge to him, though, didn't he? You know, you saw him on a touchline, the way he was. Obviously, the battles with Emma that he had and stuff like that. I don't necessarily think he was as nice as he always came across. I think when it mattered, I don't think he was that nice. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Nice guys don't win anything in competitive environment. You've got to have that streak in you. I think he did have. To be fair, I think he did have. And says that's why I never achieved. And you've achieved a lot. Don't put yourself down. You've achieved loads, and you know you always will. Terry says, "Chat's putting big cuddles around." No, Angie's fine. She's fine. She knows she's fine. Greg says, "You have Angie. You're famous." So exactly. Yeah, of course you are. And you know she was famous before, but she just is more famous now, obviously, of course. I have to say, actually, just on that point, while we're talking about what we've achieved, the women's show that we did on when was it, Thursday? Was it Thursday last week? Wasn't it? That's the most watched show that we've ever had on the channel. The most watched one ever. Now, is that a coincidence that Angie's been on and suddenly loads of people are watching? Is that just a coincidence? No, it's not, is it? It's obviously a reason. So you know, Angie, you've achieved loads. You've achieved us to get our highest ever viewing on the show. So. And B says Captain Kimmy, a true captain indeed. Yeah, Captain Kimmy is spot on. Terry says Vic 78. Well, there you go. He's 78. I wasn't far off, was I? I said 70 or 80. So there you go. Russ says Vic has plenty in the tank. I'm sure he's got plenty in the tank, but does he want to use what he's got in the tank, doing what is a very, very stressful job? I don't know. Let him enjoy his retirement. He looks happy. He looks relaxed. Let him enjoy it. Let him come to the games and watch. I'm sure that's what he's best at. And now Steve says Emma's not going to come back from the States. Expectations may be high there, but she's on a good number for herself. She is, but knowing Emma Hayes, I don't know. I think the competitiveness of obviously international football is very stoppy-starty, isn't it? You get a couple of games here and there, and then you got a couple of months without a game. And I think the competitiveness of weekly football and that high-level competitiveness, I think, will be a massive, massive draw for her. I really do. I think a year away, I think she's missed the WSL. I think she's missed the football here. You know, yeah, she's on a good number there because it's easy. She's getting paid well. But I don't know. I do think she would really. I don't think it'd take much to convince her. Put it that way. I just don't think the club have got enough about them to do it. Terry says, my worry with Arsenal is we would sooner go Lidl than Harrods. Yeah, exactly. That is my worry. They've done it with the men's team. Greg says, Andreas would be good, but he can't play Kyra in every position. No, that's true. He wouldn't be able to play Kyra in every position, but he'll certainly be able to play her more regularly than she currently does. But you see, again, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I've seen a lot of things on the forums, right, about people saying, oh, well, Rosa should be playing and this player should be playing. We don't know We're not at training. We don't know, do we? You know, just because a player looks like they might be. I mean, we don't know much about Rosa, do we? Let's be honest. You know, she looks like she's an exciting player, but she hasn't played enough football yet. Is she ready for the WSL? Maybe Jonas has held her back for a reason. Maybe he was holding her back for a reason. We're not going to know. If the new manager comes and starts playing her every week and she's smashing it, then obviously we'll have to say, "Why, Jonas, what were you doing?" But we don't know that yet, do we? And the same with Kyra. You know, Kyra's a great player, but is she ready to play every week in the WSL? I don't know. It's her second season. Maybe she's look at Vicky Palova. Came in her first season, she was a bit hit and miss. Her second season last year, she was fantastic. And we're missing her as well. See, another thing that hasn't gone Jonas's way. Another injury he's had to suffer, ACL. Do you know what I mean? He's had some bad luck. He has had some bad luck, absolutely. Terry says, give Salty 1,000 a week and as much KFC and McDonald's as she wants. I'll have no doubt she's had. Well, yeah, I must admit, yeah. I don't know. I would give her whatever it is she wants. If it's McDonald's and KFC, fine. Whatever it is she needs and she wants to come, give it to her. Just do whatever it takes. Show ambition. Steve says, it's funny how Leah didn't take the armband when Kim went off. Yeah, I mean, I think we know there's issues with Leah. And so we said it earlier on, didn't we, about the concussion thing. Was it really a concussion thing? Was there other issues behind the scenes? Yes, I think it was. We said it at the time. And I think there will be some of the senior players, some of the what I call the Viv clique, if you like, that will be happy now. They've got what they wanted. And I think they have let Jonas down. I believe they have. And they need to take a look at themselves as well. Because you can't have players that shouldn't have that much power. And unfortunately they do, because it isn't the players that get sacked. It's the manager that gets sacked. You know, after the last few performances, there's 3 or 4 players in that team that deserved to be sacked on the way they played, but it always comes down to them. Obviously, Jonas hasn't been sacked; he's walked away. But you get what I'm saying. But no, I mean, I think Leah obviously has not been happy. You can tell by her performances. Although she did recently sign a new contract, so who knows? Terry says, "I lived in the US for 6 months, and believe me, after 4 months, they drive you mad with their 'have a nice day.' She'll come back. Well, yeah, I must admit, I don't think I could live in America. I don't think I could live there. Americans kind of annoy me a little bit when you're around lots of them. And yeah, I don't think I could. I don't think I could survive living over there. But you know, I'm sure Emma's happy with the job that she's got. But it's not about, for me now, it's not necessarily about whether Emma will take the job or not. It's about whether or not we've got the ambition to even offer it to her, and whether we're prepared to pay the money that's needed to get her to come. That, to me, is the key. And that shows the direction the club's in. If we can't get her because she doesn't want to come, or she's happy in her job in America, or we can't afford to buy her out of her contract, that's fine. I'd accept that and say that's fair enough. You know, if we sit on our hands and don't even offer it to her, and offer it to someone like Casey Stoney instead, to me, that's whoever makes that decision at the club, they should go as well. They should walk with Jonas. They should be following behind him. And whether that's Claire Wheatley, whether it's Edu, whoever it is, whether it's the Cronkies, whoever it is, let's show some ambition, right? We are the biggest, most successful club in women's football in England. We're one of the biggest ones in Europe. You know, we're the only English club to win the European Cup. You know, we are, in terms of women's football, we are the top club in women's football, probably in the world. Actually, look at the crowd we're getting as well now, right? This club has got to now show ambition. They need the ambition to match the size of the club. You know, we've moved to the Emirates as our main home, right? Because of what big, massive support we've got, what a big club we are, right? We've got to act like a big club now, and we've got to get a manager in who's going to turn us into a successful club on the pitch again, which is what our history shows. So, you know, let's see what the club's about, shall we? Terry said, to be honest, I was surprised that Viv stayed at Arsenal for as long as she did. She never seemed 100% for the last 3 seasons. No, I kind of agree with that. I mean, looking back now, she should have left in 2022. Remember that last game of the season when we nearly won the league at West Ham, and she got taken off about 10 minutes to play in the game, and she looked quite emotional. She should have left then. She shouldn't have signed that contract that year. And whether it's because of the Beth situation, I don't know. But it was the wrong decision that she made. And in the end, it's almost ruined her legacy at Arsenal those last 2 seasons, because obviously she was injured for a big chunk of it. But even when she wasn't injured, she was wanting time off. She wasn't playing particularly well. She was struggling for consistency. She'd still score the odd goal and do the odd amazing thing because she's an amazing player. But you kind of got the feeling that her heart wasn't in it for those last 2 seasons. She shouldn't have signed that contract. That was a mistake. She should have gone then. And maybe, that was the end of Jonas's first season. Maybe we wouldn't be having these problems now. For some reason, Jonas has been painted as the villain for the whole Viv situation, whereas I think Viv was the architect of all that herself. She was tatting herself around in January, where she was still on a contract with us. She was still playing for us, and she was looking for another club in January. That's not Jonas's fault. That's her. That was her doing. She should have knuckled herself down, got herself fit, and concentrated on playing, giving her best for the team, but she didn't. She was more bothered about, well, where am I going to go at the end of the season? Where am I going to go? I want to get that sorted out. She didn't give her full commitment to the team. It was the right decision for her not to sign. I say she stayed 2 years too long, really. As it's turned out, we know that now because the last 2 seasons were terrible for Viv. Terrible. We didn't see the best of her at all, did we? One goal against Liverpool stands out, and obviously the very last goal that she scored, I suppose. But I don't know. No, she stayed too long. Lucky says, but hey, everyone has their day. Sometimes respect goes a long way and being patient with a manager. But now there's no scapegoat. These players are about to be exposed if they don't start performing. Now, that is a great point. And I was saying before that the players need to look at themselves and take responsibility. But you're absolutely right. Jonas, the manager's always a scapegoat when results aren't going well. Players hide behind the manager, don't they? They allow the manager to take the criticism because the manager will get criticism from the crowd, from the fans. They'll get criticism from the media, and the players can hide behind that, and they can say, "Oh well, he's getting all the stick. We're all right. No one's going to criticise us. Not really. We'll get away with it." And you're right, and they are going to be exposed if they don't step up now. Absolutely, because they have got nowhere else to blame. They've got nowhere, not necessarily now. We've got an interim manager who's lacking experience. She might well be great, but yeah, when we get a new manager in, you're right. Absolutely, you're right. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, actually. Seeing what a new manager can do to get these players to play. Greg, because I think Viv was unhappy because Jonas didn't make her the centre of attention. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a big part of it, yeah. And I think Viv's a very, I don't want to call her selfish because I don't think that's the right word, but I think she's very self-centered in, it's all about how she feels, right? And I'm not saying we shouldn't all take our own feelings seriously. Of course we should. But how many other players have you seen, despite what's going on, that ask for a break and a holiday in the middle of the season? And Viv did it 2 or 3 times, and she felt she needed to do that for herself. But she's under contract for the club. It's her job. We can't just decide, can we? One day, I don't fancy going into work for the next 2 weeks. I'm just not going to bother. They'll still pay me. Of course they won't. You'll get sacked. You've got a job, you've got a responsibility. But when you're a sports person, it's different, isn't it? You've got a lot more responsibility. You've got a lot more responsibility to your club, to your team, to your teammates, to everybody. And I think she showed a lot of disrespect by wanting those breaks. You've got to accept part of the job of being a footballer is the pressure. And sometimes it gets too much. And you've got to learn to deal with that or get another job. You can't, it's funny now that is she going to suddenly start asking for holidays at Man City? Do you think? I don't think she will. So, she's got to look at herself. But I think you're right, Greg. I do think that's definitely part of it. Angie agrees as well. Yeah, I definitely think you've got a point there. And Lucky says, but with Kerr signing, do you think it's a good decision? I also think she's been at Chelsea long. Yeah, it could well be. You see, we don't know, do we? This is the thing, isn't it? Nobody really knows what's going on in players' minds and the reasons why they sign new contracts and the reasons why they don't sometimes as well. We don't know that, do we? I think it's important to sometimes take our own feelings about players and managers out a little bit and try to look at it more logically and practically and think, we don't know what goes on, do we? We don't know how players are feeling. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. We see a few videos of training, but we don't really know what's going on, do we? We don't know the individual relationships between players, between the manager, between the coaching staff and the players. We don't get to really see that. And even when they did the documentaries on Netflix and stuff at football clubs, you only really see what the club want you to see. You don't see all the other stuff that goes on, not really. So we don't know, do we? We don't know. Nobody really knows, apart from the people that are involved at the club. So we a lot of times we go off our own feelings, don't we? We make our decisions on our own personal feelings about players and managers and stuff like that. Sometimes it's difficult, but I think it's important to sometimes try to take yourself away a little bit and take a backward step and, try and look at the bigger picture. It's not about individuals, is it? No football club's about individuals. I've said this before. I don't care about any individual. No individual is bigger than my football club. No individual. They come and go. Managers come and go. Players come and go. Doesn't matter. They're not that important in the overall. They're important at the time they're there, for the time they're there. But in the overall scheme of it, a lot of them are never going to be remembered much in history, are they? Unless they've done something exceptional. Obviously, Viv will, of course. But you know what I mean? It's like the individuals aren't what it's about. It's about the club. It's about the club as a whole. And that's what's the most important thing. And I try not to get too attached. Like I said this before, I try not to get too attached to any individual at my football club, whether it's a manager, whether it's a player, whatever it is, because inevitably at some point they're going to go. They're going to leave. Managers will get sacked. Players will leave. They'll get offered a bigger contract somewhere else. And it's important just to enjoy the moments, isn't it, that they're there. While Viv was there, did we really appreciate her all the time she was there? Probably not as much as we should have done. What a great player she was, certainly 3 or 4 years ago. And I think that those things are more important, aren't they? Let's enjoy what's happening at the time it's happening, because it won't last. It never does. People come and go. That's the way of life, isn't it? So, let's not focus too much on individuals. Terry says, 100% Greg, but who is this Viv you're all talking about? Oh, we don't know. It's just some random person. Scott says, what do you make of Arsenal girls getting the call up, considering the lack of good performances? Well, yeah, I mean, again, you see, I don't think the Arsenal girls have particularly let England down, have they, when they play for England? I think Lotta's been actually brilliant when she's played for England. Leah's a captain. She's always going to get picked. Obviously, Beth is Beth. And on her day, she's one of the best in the world. Again, unhappiness at club level can reflect in your performances, and I think that maybe now, if that was a cloud hanging over of all this whole Jonas stuff, maybe they'll start to play better anyway. I hope so. Cornish Guna said, "Hey, Dim, I think good to see you." He says, "I think Viv liked the whole world to be set around her just the way she liked in order to be happy and play well." Yeah, I mean, she basically said that, didn't she? I mean, in her interview that I saw, well, one of the interviews I saw after she left, and she was talking about, a happy Viv is going to play better on the pitch. And I think that's true about any player, to be honest. If you're happy, you're going to play better than if you're not happy. But no, you're right. Unless everything was perfect for us, you wouldn't be happy. And I think that's the issue, isn't it? You've got to find happiness in the way things are if you're going to do well. And if you can't do that, then you need to move. You need to make a change. But she should have done it before. I think it's dragged on too long with her. Emerson Gilmore, my friend, he says, give the NBR2 till the end of the season, as Haystone and Serena are out of the running. And my tip, bring back an ex-player who's management experience. My tip as a long shot, Jane Ludlow. Yeah, but again, just because they play for Arsenal doesn't mean they're going to make a great Arsenal manager. I'm not necessarily against that idea necessarily. I just think we should look for a manager right now who's the best in the business in women's football. Don't hang around hoping that it might work out in 2 or 3 years' time. No, let's get the best now, because we don't want to be in this position again in 2 or 3 years' time, do we? Or a year's time, or whatever. You know what I mean? Joe says, is the fact that McCabe hasn't had a yellow card in the last however many games, it showed a lack of passion, dejection of players. I read that. I saw that statistic actually, and I was quite surprised that she hadn't been booked for as long as she has. Was it 18 games or something? I think it was, or something like that, wasn't it? The longest of her career. I wouldn't necessarily say that Katie McCabe hasn't been getting involved in stuff, not going into challenges. She's not pulling out of things. I think maybe the coaching staff, the manager maybe had spoken to her and said, look, you can't keep getting these yellow cards. Because she's had red cards, cost us before, and maybe they've said to her, you just need to calm it down a little bit, because you can't risk getting sent off and you can't risk being suspended for all the yellow cards and stuff. So maybe that was a part of it, more of a part of it than her individually, because I've not really seen her necessarily show any different attitude on the pitch. I still think she's charging around and, being Katie McCabe, but maybe she's just trying to direct it in a better way, which is a positive for me. And if that's what the manager and the coaching staff have done, to me, that's a good thing. It's a good thing, because what we don't want is Katie McCabe getting all those stupid bookings, end up getting suspended, and then we then suffer. So I don't know. If she has lost her passion, then that would be a problem. I've not necessarily seen that. I was shocked when I saw the statistics she hadn't been booked, because you just expect that she has, because she always gets booked. And I did notice it against Chelsea. There was a couple of things that you think, oh, it's Katie McCabe. She's probably going to get booked because it's Katie McCabe, and she didn't. Yet the referee was quite happy to book a lot of Arsenal players. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe that is the reason. I'm hoping it might be more to do with a coaching thing that they've tried to tell her. She's got to calm or direct it in a more positive way. Because a lot of the time, a lot of her yellow cards were stupid, weren't they? She got involved in stupid things she didn't need to. And is that showing passion? Yes, but it's also it's got to be controlled, so you're not costing your team. And sometimes she has cost us. But we never really want to lose that, do we? Because it's part of what she is, who she is. Terry says, I put Viv in the same category. Alice, well, yeah, maybe. Lucky says, yeah, at the end of the day, it's a business just like any other. And the only constant is a club. Exactly, yeah. I've always felt like that, always. And there's players and managers that I really liked, adored when they're at the club. But you've got to remember they're not going to be there forever. They're going to go. They're going to leave at some point, and we're going to have to deal with it. Terry says, evening Cornish, you've been keeping a long time now. Yeah, it's been a long time, yeah. Cornish has not been here. Cornish says, is Stoney ruled out? And I'm not sure if she's been ruled out. I don't know. There's not really been much to go off. I think a lot of people have been talking about Casey Stoney because of her links to Arsenal. She's been seen at the ground, although she's at most of the games anyway. And they may be putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 6. I don't know. It's difficult to speculate. Let's just wait and see what the club do in the next few weeks. We're just going to have to wait, aren't we? Colby says, Katie has looked slow to me. She's not had the cards because everyone is running past her. Well, yeah, but sometimes in the past, she's kind of stopped them running past her just by knocking them over. And maybe she's not doing that. I don't know. It's weird. So he says, come on, chat, hit the like button. 47. Only 18. Oh, come on, 18 likes. That's not good, is it? Look, do we want to get Emma Hayes as manager? Do we want to get a top manager? If we do, you're going to have to start liking this show, honestly, because otherwise it's never going to happen. We're never going to get a manager like Emma Hayes, because if you look at this show, I think, well, there's only 18 people liked it. Why would I want to go to that club? I want to go to a club where there's like 30 likes on shows, or 20 likes, 25 likes, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that's what I need to do. Comedy Skills is done. Thank you, my friend, as always. So yeah, it has been quite a strange day today, hasn't it? Actually, I wasn't expecting to be brought that news this morning. I was at work and suddenly I've started to get notifications on my phone thinking, what's happened? And of course, it was Jonas resigned. Did he resign or was he pushed? I guess we'll probably never know. Maybe a little bit of both. Maybe it was mutually decided that if he quits, it'll be better for him. Maybe it will be better for the club. Although, why would he agree to that, knowing that he could have got a big payoff if they were going to sack him? If that was me, I'd have probably said, just sack me. But maybe they wasn't going to sack him. See, I kind of think, I still believe deep down that they probably wasn't going to sack him, and I believe he deserved the opportunity to try to turn this around. I'm not saying indefinitely, but he deserved the opportunity to try and turn it around now. Get these 2 games here now, hopefully 2 wins, which we should get, and then see how he can turn it around. And if he hasn't turned it around by Christmas, I would have maybe sacked him then. That would have been mine. If I was running a club, that's probably what I would have done. I feel as though he deserved that opportunity. So if he's turned around and left for his own personal reasons, that's fine. We've got to respect that. I certainly respect it. But yeah, we don't really know what's going on, do we? Let's be honest. We don't know what's happened. It'll all come out in the fullness of time, I'm sure. Of course, there is a game tomorrow, a Champions League game. Vålerenga have got a great name, haven't they? We don't know too much about them, as we said the other night on the show, but it is a game that we should win, regardless of who's the manager of Arsenal, regardless of which players are selected, regardless of the tactics or anything. We should be too strong to beat Vålerenga at the Emirates. We should beat them, and we should beat them fairly comfortably. And of course, it's West Ham away, who we've had a few problems away at West Ham. Obviously, we lost last season there, which was an important defeat in terms of where the season was heading. So we need to put that right. They're not a great side, West Ham. We always seem to find it difficult over there, don't we? But and then I think at least we can go to the international break with a little bit of breathing space for everybody. And we can all regroup as fans, as the players, and everybody else, and really try and get some positives back in the season. Because I say the season's not over for me. I don't even think the league's over. It's a big job. We've got 18 games left, and we're probably going to have to win 16 of them, 15, 16 of them, probably. But we've got the players to do it. If we can get we make the right appointment quickly enough, I still think we can do it. College Gouda says a good win tomorrow night, fingers crossed. Yeah, I'm sure it will be. I think there's going to be, and I think it happens sometimes, regardless of how good or how bad a manager is and how much the players like him or not. When a manager leaves, I do think there's going to be a lot of players that will feel relief, because not all players get on with the manager, do they? And I think that maybe there might be a little bit more freedom in their play. Okay, yes, it's one of his coaches that's managing the team, and she already spoken today, Renee, about how loyal she's been to Jonas. They've worked together before. She's not going to make massive changes, is she? She's going to try to keep Jonas's ideas going while she's there. I would imagine. She's only an interim coach, so I can't see her coming in and making massive changes to the starting team or the players, the formation, the system. I think it's going to be pretty much as it was. But I think we might see certain players playing with a little bit more freedom tomorrow. I'm hoping so. And let's hope that that's going to be the case, and we'll have an exciting game and same on the weekend, and we win. I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Terry says the problem with our fans, we become too attached to the players, and when things go tits up, we start taking sides. Let's be honest, not many players or managers give a monkeys about the fans. It's not personal. No, exactly. I kind of agree with you. And I do think, especially, I think it's more of an issue in the women's game, and I don't mean it to be disrespectful to anybody, but I think biologically, men and women are very different, and women tend to use a lot of emotion. They sort of make decisions on emotions more than logic, more often than what men do. And that's just the makeup of women. They're the way they are. There's nothing wrong with that. It's great. And I think because obviously women's game's got more women fans, and I think that's why they do become very attached to players, and they do take sides, and they do become very emotional about it. Whereas men are a lot more like, actually, I don't really give a shit. I couldn't really care if this player and that player get on or not. I can't really give a shit if the manager gets on with that player, as long as we win games, as long as we're enjoying the football and we're successful. That's all that matters. Whereas I think women are a little bit more emotional, and that's fine. I say that's not a criticism. I don't want it to be taken as a criticism. It's a good thing, and that's what tends to happen. And I do think they do get more attached to the players, and they do get more attached to stuff and people and stuff like that, and that's understandable, and that's the way it is, and it's always been the issue with it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing. It's just the way it is, and I've got no problem with it. But you're right. Ultimately, I mean, I think the players do care about the fans. I do think they do care about the fans. I do, but their decisions aren't going to be based on what the fans think. The decisions are going to be based on a lot of other issues, isn't it? Which is true. Roland says McCabe's in love with Caitlin. That's where her passion went. Lesbian relationships within the squad is what's ruining Arsenal. Where is the HR department? See, not just at Arsenal. I think that is an issue with in women's football. Obviously, we know that it's at every club. There's players that are in relationships with each other. There's players that have were in relationships and have broke up and are still at the same club. And all these things that happen in women's football, that's unique. And this is what I said before. This is why it's no good getting someone like Jack Wilshere to come in and manage the team. You need someone who understands women's football. It doesn't have to be a woman. Maybe that's better. I don't know, but just someone who understands women's football and understands women's footballers. That it's not like men's football. You don't have those issues in men's football. Well, not that we're aware of. You probably do get the odd one here and there potentially, but there are different issues. There's different stuff that a manager of a women's team has to deal with that a manager of a men's team doesn't, and that's why it takes a different type of person to become a manager of a women's team, especially at the top level because of all those issues. And you're absolutely right. And these are, I'm not calling them problems because they're not problems, but they are issues. And I do feel as though it's what makes maybe women's football a little bit more unique in that sense, because you don't get that in, I suppose, in other women's team sports you do, but because football's such a high-profile sport, it becomes more noticeable, doesn't it? And they are issues. And I can't remember who said it now. Somebody, was it Emma Hayes? No, it can't have been. There was some manager. I'm sure it was a manager in women's football. This was, I don't know, a year or so ago. I remember an interview. I remember seeing a clip of it saying about, relationships between players. It may have been Jonas, actually. I don't know if it is. So don't tell me it was. It was somebody. I saw an interview with somebody, and they were saying about relationships between players at the top level is not good. Is not good for the dressing room. It's not good for the club. It's not good for the team. And I kind of agree with that. And I would be, whether that was after problem with Viv and Beth, maybe that the fact that they got together, was that something that then caused problems in the dressing room? I think it may well have done. And I think that those issues are something in women's football that, is something that I don't know what they can do about it. Really, you can't stop who people would like. As Pep said, you can't help who you fall in love with, and that's fine. There's no issue with that. But I don't think it's good for the team dressing room, probably, because we all know what relationships are like, don't we? And if you work with your partner, it doesn't always run smoothly, does it? It just doesn't, because that's natural. If you're spending all that time, you've got your home life with them, and then you've got your work life with them as well. I think it's quite difficult to get that balance right, and I think it causes more problems than the positives of that. So when you've got 2 or 3 in each dressing room of every club, which often is the case, I don't know what can be done about it. You can't stop it happening. I don't know what the answer is, but I don't know. There needs to be a better way of different way of managing it, maybe to make it work better. I don't know. Greg says, whatever happens, the club is what we support, so let's keep behind the goals. Exactly, yeah, we do. Clive says, good evening, Rich and chat. Is the headline true about the manager resign? Yeah, he's resigned today, my friend. He did resign today. I don't know where you've been hiding, but yes, Yo has resigned. Well, technically it was yesterday. He told the club, and it was announced this morning. He told the players this morning, and then it was announced about 10:30, I think, UK time. Yes, he has resigned. We have currently got no manager for the time being. Greg says, today's a sad day, but tomorrow we win well. Everything will look great. And exactly, yeah. And I think it's important, isn't it? Today, I wanted to come on and do this show. One, because I thought it was worth talking about, first of all. And secondly, because I think it's important that we draw a line under it. We can't let, however we feel about Jonas now, whether we're pleased he's gone, whether we're sad he's gone, however we feel about it, I think it's important that we get it out of the way today, draw a line under it, and start afresh from tomorrow when the game's on. And I think it's important that we do that. You're absolutely right. And yeah, of course, if we win tomorrow, and if we win the next 6 or 7 games, Jonas will soon be not forgotten, but it will be pushed to the back of everybody's mind, won't it? So yeah, I think it's important that whether or not you disliked Jonas or you loved him, it's important that I think after today we draw a line under that. That's finished. That era of this club has gone, and we move forward and look ahead. Don't look back. What's gone is gone, and I think after today we need to draw a line under it, don't we? And stuff like that. Having said that, we are going to talk about it on the show on Friday when we get the guys on. But you're right. I totally agree with you. Angie says it was Emma that's then she retracted. Was it Emma? See, there you go. I couldn't remember who it was. I just remember seeing an interview when she mentioned it. And I thought at the time she said it, or whoever it was at the time, I remember thinking, you're dead right, actually. And it was quite brave of them to say it. And if it's Emma Hayes, then, even more respect to her, because there's things that you're not really allowed to say, you're not supposed to say, and people don't want you to say stuff, even though these things sometimes need to be said. And I think that was something that needed to be said, and it was great that it was brought out into the open. It was made a public thing, and yeah, if she retracted it afterwards, probably due to pressure that was put on her to retract it. Obviously, it's what she felt, it's what she means, and she's right. She's right. If it was her, then say brilliant. Even more reason to get her involved, get her back at Arsenal. Even more reason. Terry says, "Well said, Greg." Terry says, "Well done, and see how good." So exactly, yeah. There you go. You see, we need it, don't we? F8 says, "Hey," says, "Player coach relationships, they're inappropriate. Player to player relationships." That was it. Yeah, that was pretty much it. It was Emma Hayes. Now you mentioned that. Yes. Yeah, exactly. It was Emma Hayes. And yeah, and she's right, really. And it's like in any workplace, isn't it? Relationships between work colleagues is always frowned upon. Pretty much in every job, apart from, it seems, in women's football and women's sport, maybe in women's team sport, maybe more in general. But yeah, you're right. It is. It's never looked on in a good way in any other job, is it? Relationships, whether they're whether they're straight relationships or gay relationships. It's never really looked on in a positive way in work, is it? So Emma was right, but how do you stop that? How do you change it? You can't, because people are humans, and you can't help those feelings, can you? You can't help it. And when you spend a lot of time with someone, people, that's what can happen. But yeah, but she's right. It is inappropriate, and I think it was braver to say that, actually, wasn't it? So even more respect to her. We can respect her now. She's not at Chelsea, and we'll respect her even more if he comes to Arsenal. Greg, sorry, says people come and go, but love for their club. Exactly that. That's exactly how I feel. And the club is what matters to me always. The club is the most important thing. Players, all right, where they're there. Managers, yeah, where they're there. Ultimately, most of them don't care enough. They'll leave for a few quid more, won't they? A bigger contract, better job offer. We don't. No matter what happens, we stay, don't we? We're still here. We still go and watch the games. We're still giving the club our money. We're the most important people, the fans. Players and managers aren't. Not really. They can be replaced, or they are replaced. You can't replace your fans. And you, as a fan, you can't replace your club. You're stuck with it, whether you like it or not. And I've been going through that quite a lot, especially with the men's team over recent years. The way the direction the club are going, it's testing my loyalty quite a lot. But ultimately, you can't get rid of it. It's always going to be there. You can't help it. So yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. The club is the only thing and the fans as well, because the fans, you can't change your club. You can change lots of things in your life, but you can't change your football club. Absolutely not. It's impossible. Even if you wanted to, you just can't. It's impossible to do it. It's impossible. Tom Gutsi says, great move for the club. Never felt his appointment was right. Like I said, I mean, I don't know if he's watching earlier, Tom, but I mean, he's been quite unlucky with the small margin. He could have won a WSL title and reached a Champions League final and won 2 League Cups in 3 seasons, which would be amazing. And there's not much he could have done differently for that result to have happened. So it's not working out right now, absolutely not. But for him to say he never felt the right appointment, I think he's done enough in those 3 years, and I believe he's done enough in those 3 years to have justified more time. And I'm sure the club were going to give him more time because it wasn't a club decision. But I think he's been very, very unlucky. He's been unlucky with injuries. He's been unlucky with a lot of different things. And he was so close to winning or getting very close to the big trophies. I say we were top of the table at half time on the last game of the season. That's how close we were to winning the league. We were seconds away from a penalty shootout in the semi-final of a Champions League at home. You've got a massive advantage of a penalty shootout at home. So we could have been in a Champions League final. Such small margins. He's been so unlucky. We look at all the injuries that we've had, the ACLs that we've had, Vicky Palova out now. He's been unlucky. Was he the right man to take us to that level? I don't think he was far away. Honestly, I don't think he was far away. Terry says, I bet everyone in the chat knew Richard would do a show tonight on the news as soon as it broke this morning. I must admit, as soon as the news broke, I mean, it wasn't my first thought to do a show, but I did think I've got to do something because I think it's such a big issue. And, we've talked about this situation for weeks on the show for a long time, actually. FK says, I think romantic player relationships are part of the women's game and it's a part to understand. No, you're right. It is, of course, like I said, I think women's sport, it's a part of that, isn't it? It's part of life at the end of the day, but it's almost been, it seems to be more acceptable in sport than it is in any other workplace, isn't it? It's almost looked on in a really positive way, whereas in any other work situation, it's looked on negatively, isn't it? People get sacked at work for relationships at work. People have got sacked for it. You know what I mean? So it's a totally different mindset. And why should it be different in sport? It should be the same across the board, isn't it? Employment law should be employment law. What happens at work should be the same, or wherever your job is, really. And I'm not saying that relationship shouldn't happen because, like I said, you can't help it. That's part of life. It's a great part of life, isn't it? But I do think it's detrimental to a team sport to have players that are in relationships with each other. I do think it's detrimental to the team personally, because relationships never run smoothly, do they? And they always usually end at some point not very nicely. Terry says, always say what you mean. Never ever let them take your free speech away. Always say exactly what you mean and never apply. No, I agree. I think once I've said it, she needs to stick by it. You need to be brave enough to stick by what you said. Unless you've made a complete tit of yourself, then maybe reflect and think, okay, fair enough. Yeah, that was a bit silly. And I hope it ends up, I do apologise. But don't just apologise because people have told you they didn't like it. Absolutely not. It's like Ricky Gervais says. I love Ricky Gervais. And one of the things that he says is, offence isn't something that you create yourself. Offence is what somebody chooses to take. They take offence. That's their issue, not yours. You can say what you feel, and you should be allowed to say what you feel. If somebody gets offended by that, that's their issue, not yours. You shouldn't apologise because they didn't like it. They need to change the way they think and not be offended by stupid things that shouldn't be shouldn't become offensive. So I totally agree with that. And it's like, you know, we shouldn't go around saying, well, I can't say this because someone might not like it. We don't know we can't influence or have any say over how other people feel and how other people are going to feel. That's their own issue to deal with. And I've never been offended by anything anybody's ever said because that's just me. So, you know, no words would offend me. Nothing like that would offend me. So, because I process it in my own way, and everybody does. But that's their issue, not the person who said what they've said. They've just said how they felt, and everybody should be allowed to say how they feel. You know, in this day and age in particular, everyone's encouraged to say how they feel, aren't they? So don't then criticise somebody for saying how they feel. And don't say, "Well, I didn't like that. I want you to say sorry." Well, no, I'm sorry, no, but everybody should be allowed to express themselves. And if you don't like it, you need to deal with that, not them. But anyway, that's a slightly different issue. But anyway, Mark says, "Yeah, great show. I've listened to your commentary on the live games. Much appreciated." Mark from Australia. Thank you very much, my friend. We get quite a few people from Australia actually on the show. We've got Steve. He's in Australia. There's a few others actually. I think we're quite popular in Australia, which is good. Now, good to hear from you, my friend. Thank you very much for the comments. Hope you keep watching. Greg says, perhaps this is all set up and Jonas is taken over from us. Imagine. Oh, wow. Wouldn't that be good? Imagine that. That would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Oh, that would be great. Terry says, I hated Jonas' success. Well, he probably hated the fact that Jonas was winning trophies. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Arteta's behind it all to get rid of him. We can't have a manager at the women's team that's winning trophies. It makes me look bad. Yeah, I think that's what's happened, actually. I think Arteta's behind it. I think Arteta's been undermining him. I think Arteta's been sneaking into training because obviously they're training at the same training ground. You've been sneaking in after training, saying to the players, you know, you've got to get this manager sacked. Start playing crap. You know, miss easy chances. You know, lose badly. Lose some games badly. Make it look bad for him. We've got to get rid of him. So I think that's what's happened, definitely. Joe says, I think the reason we're more emotional about our game is it's been us and the players against the world for a long time. We've had to deal with the dismissal, and that does make you passionate. But no, I mean, yes, I agree. And one of the reasons why I've really become so sort of about women's football is one of the same reasons because of it was banned for so long. And even now, even now when it's become more popular, there's still so much negativity around it and comparing it to the men's game and all that kind of stuff. And no, I'll get you 100% there, absolutely. And I think that, you know, I will defend women's football all day long. I will defend it forever because it's worth defending. I think it's brilliant. And anybody that criticises women's football, for me, doesn't understand football and certainly doesn't understand women's football at all. And they need to, everybody should give it a try. I've always said that. Go to a game, you know, enjoy it for what it is. Don't think, well, it's not as good as the Premier League or it's not as good as a men's game. Well, it doesn't have to be, does it? It just has to be what it is. Enjoy it for what it is. You know, you don't need to compare it. There's no point. Just enjoy it. You know what I mean? But you're right, absolutely. And I think a lot of people feel the same because women's football's never been given the credit it's deserved. And now it's suddenly starting to get more. It's also getting more criticism because more people are talking about it and there's more interest in it. And you've got idiots like Joey Barton criticising it constantly and stuff like that. And he's entitled to do that. As I said, he's entitled to give his opinion and we're entitled to disagree with him. But that's what's going to happen, isn't it? As soon as anything becomes more popular, there's going to be more people that dislike it because that's life, isn't it? That's the way it is. And that's we can't do anything about that other than just back what we like and ourselves and enjoy it and try to promote it as best as we can. Roland says, I predict soon there will be a Me Too movement in women's soccer. Imagine you have a senior leading player who's a predator preying on young players trying to break through. Well, there probably is. There probably is. Ultimately, there's been in men's football, stories have come out, haven't they, about coaches of junior teams and stuff like that. I'm sure it's the same in women's football. It must be. The law of averages suggests it will be, and I'm sure you're right. And this sort of stuff needs to be talked about and brought out, doesn't it? Because we can't have it going on. Absolutely not. It's has to be stopped. But it's only going to be stopped if people are prepared to talk about it and prepared to put themselves out there. And it's difficult to do. It's difficult if you've been through that yourself. It's so difficult, isn't it? Especially if you're a top player, even more difficult to come out and say these things have happened to me. You know what I mean? It's all very well for maybe a player that no one's ever heard of. No one's going to be as concerned. They should be, but they won't be. But if a top player comes out with it, it's going to have much more impact, isn't it? But it's going to take a lot of courage. But you're right, absolutely. Terry says, I've been sleeping with the secretary at work for years and never been sacked. Perhaps it's because she's my wife and it's my business. Well, there you go. You kind of get away with it, don't you? You do kind of get away with it. Then says, that's all right. Yeah, that's probably fine. We'll probably allow that, won't we? I think maybe. Should we allow that? What do we think? Should we have a poll up? Should we allow Terry to sleep with his secretary, who happens to be his wife, or should we make him have to sack her from the job? There you go. 170 Garrett says, did you watch Lee Gunner angry rant against Arteta and Saka? Probably not, no, because I don't think I've ever watched him, actually. I've seen a few clips on Twitter and the kind of things. Do I really want to watch that? No, not really. Greg says, brave man Terry, I couldn't work with mine. I go to work to get away from and get some peace. Well, there's always that other side as well, actually. There is always that other side as well. But, everybody's relationship works for themselves, doesn't it? You work out yourself to make it work, and if it works for Terry working with his wife, that's brilliant. And if it works for you, Greg, that you don't want to work with her and it gets you away, then that's great as well. If it makes it work, it's all that matters, isn't it? And I suppose it's the same with the footballers, isn't it? If it works for them being in a relation like Viv and Bev, if that work for them together, playing in the same team, then that's fine. I don't think it's a good thing overall for everybody else. Terry says, Greg, that's why I'm still on the tools. We'd end up killing each other otherwise. Yeah, I mean, I say it's just what works, isn't it? I suppose for everybody. And we've been going for quite a long time actually. I was intending to do this for about half an hour, and I've just got carried away. And your comments and stuff like that, which has been great. It's been great actually. I've enjoyed it, and it has kind of got it off my chest a little bit, but. Ultimately, I will repeat what I started with. I do feel sad today. I do feel a little bit upset for Jonas, who I did like, and I do think he was been very, very unfortunate the way it's worked out. I say he was so close to becoming one of the greatest managers we've had, and in the end, he's going to be one of the more. He's not really going to be mentioned in the greats of our time, even though he did win 2 trophies, and he did stop Chelsea winning both of those 2. So that's always something that I'll remember. There's so many great games under his management. I'll remember the great days at the Emirates with 60,000 sellouts. The Champions League, the semi-final, quarter-final against Bayern, the semi-final against Wolfsburg, first game to sell out at the Emirates. What a great game that was, how close we came. And, there's been a lot of great moments that we've enjoyed under Jonas. And yes, there were some bad moments, some terrible games, some terrible performances, some really bad defeats. But I'll choose to remember those good moments more. Looking back, when it comes to looking back at Jonas and thinking about him in the future, that'll be what I remember. Those great days, those great games. I say the Emirates sellouts, the cup wins, all that kind of stuff. I personally want to thank Jonas for what he gave us. Wish him all the best wherever he ends up, whatever job he takes next, whatever club he ends up at, whether it's in England, whether it's abroad. I'll be keeping an eye on where he goes and what he does in the future because I like the guy. I am feeling a little bit sad today, but as we said, we draw a line under it and we look forward now. And looking forward for us is tomorrow night, the game, 8 o'clock kickoff. Of course, it is Vålerenga in the Champions League. I'll be here about 7:45, 10 to 8 for a bit of build-up. We'll go through the team news, see what team Rene picks for her first game as interim manager. It's going to be interesting, isn't it? let's see how we play. Let's see if the players are suddenly, the cloud's been lifted from them and they suddenly start to express themselves more. Let's have a look and see. It's going to be an interesting game. Looking forward to that tomorrow. So join me for that. Of course, Friday, we will be back. The Arsenal Women's Show, our proper show with the guys. Obviously, we'll be talking about Jonas, get their opinion as well. We're going to look back on the Chelsea disappointment result, the performance. Also, we're going to look back on the Vålerenga game, which hopefully will be good. And we're going to look into West Ham as well, going into the international break. So join us for that on Friday. That'll be at 7:45. And then, of course, it's a big weekend. Saturday, the men are back. The Premier League's back. 5:30 kickoff. Arsenal versus Bournemouth from the Vitality Stadium, if it's still called the Vitality Stadium. But we'll be here 5:15 for that one. See if Arsenal can keep their unbeaten start to the season going in the Premier League. So join us back. Sunday it is the Arsenal women against West Ham. 3:00 kickoff. We'll be at 2:45 for that one as well before the international break. And of course, then next week the men take over. They're back in Champions League action as well. So it's all happening, isn't it? It's all happening here. So stay with us. Thank you to everybody for joining me tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you for all your comments in the chat. Brilliant. It's been brilliant, some of your comments as well. It's been great to get some new people involved, some of the regulars as well, of course, as always, which we do enjoy. Terry says, Richard, don't let it give you sleepless nights. That goes all in the chat. As Greg said, if we win tomorrow, it'll be forgotten and it'll be Thursday's chip shop. Exactly, yeah, we all move forward. That's what football is, isn't it? We can't dwell on the past. Joe says there, San Diego Wave have a huge inquest going on about abuse, racism, and bullying. Yeah, no, I've heard about that. Yeah, it would have happened in other places. It's not just there. Trust me, it'll be not everywhere. There'll be a lot of other incidences of it that's happened. Absolutely, it will, and it needs to come out, and that's what's needed, isn't it? We need that to happen because it needs to stop. It can't carry on. It needs to, it needs to be. The people need to be, need to be punished and dealt with in the right way. Terry, just hit that like button anyway. Indeed, yes, hit the like button, guys. Thanks for watching. Jonas is gone. He is history. He did the right thing. He decided to make that decision rather than wait to be sacked. So he hasn't cost the club any money. So that's another thing to respect him for. So yeah, thank you, Jonas. I enjoyed a lot of what you did. Not quite all of it, unfortunately, but we'll let you off. Terry says, come on, you good, go make us proud. And says, night, great shot the Arsenal. Indeed, up the Arsenal. We'll see it tomorrow for the game, 7:45. It's going to be good. It's going to be exciting. New era. It's a new era for Arsenal, isn't it? Starts tomorrow. The Jonas era is over. The new era is here. Renee is in charge. Let's see what she can do. A couple of games that she's got. Or maybe she'll get longer. But she's got a couple of games for now. We're going to look forward to that tomorrow. 7:45. Arsenal women versus Vålerenga Champions League. We have to win. All this other drama has to be forgotten for 90 minutes. We've got to win that game after the Bayern result. We have to win. Let's try and win well. Get some confidence back ahead of the weekend, eh? Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you tomorrow for the match and Friday for the proper Arsenal women's show with all the guys. It's going to be good. Join us for all of that. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Come on, you guys. Tara Jonas, thanks for the memories. See you soon, guys.